help come out with a constitution. And that will be based on the previous experiences that we have had as a nation, that we've always had an elite form of a committee, a committee of lawyers.
So you realize I was saying that if we say you want to have the grassroots participate, why should you have a problem with the market woman being part of it who also speak? That is how I feel governance should be like.
That is not a problem at all.
Or we felt that, constitutional work was purely for the elite, and that those that are not well littered were not supposed to be part. That is where I have a little challenge in the submission. But about the narrative, not the submission. Yeah. The narrative that is following this thing.
Yes, we want every Ghanaian to participate in the process. That is what is expected. But are we able to guarantee that the butcher will have the intellectual capacity of the law professor or of the lawyer or the member of the Ghana Bar Association? Because this is constitution. I am not a lawyer. I will never claim to be one. So there are some legal languages that I'm unable to. Yes.
Nene, if that butcher makes a statement, can't the lawyer or the legal professor shape that thought into what the person was thinking of that will become workable?
That is where, in coming up with constitutions, they always allow for the broader society to make inputs.
Okay.
And at those fora, there will be an opportunity, or there will be opportunities for members of society, the ordinary Ghanaians like us, to also make inputs. But putting them on a committee to the exclusion of the Ghana Bar Association, in fact, they were given limited numbers. The Ghana Bar Association, National Union of Ghana Students, the intellectual group was rather left out, given just some few slots, and rather pack the committee with people who, as I said, they are Ghanaians, they sovereign, they are citizens who qualify to contribute to national development. But at that point,
we didn't need them.
Will I be called to play for Black Stars? I'm a Ghanaian, 100%. But when you see me on the pitch playing for Black Stars, what will you think? Is this guy too? So we have people who are trained to do some things. So we allow them to do those things. I don't expect Abedi Pele to come to political science class and teach. I expect him to, now he's coaching, those things. So we expect those with expertise to do what they are trained to do in order for our society to move on, in order for society to progress. And that is a challenge that I have with the packing of.
Okay, so let me get a clear understanding of your concern here, so that for you, they could have been consulted at the initial stages, but when they were firming the document up, they should have given it to the experts to firm it up.
Later experts firmed it up, yes.
So wherein lies the challenge of they get involved in the earlier stages?
The problem is not the involvement. By all means, we have to involve
them,
the cross-section of the Ghanaian population, yes. And the professions are all needed. But we will ask questions when, say, out of a committee of 20, you have two slots for lawyers, you have 1 slot for NUCs, 5 for hairdressers association, 5 for butchers, 5 for barbers. Aren't you going to question why?
So the representation proportion is where the challenge is.
Exactly. That it was packed. And in fact, the packing of those people, some people argue that those people who were put on those committees, it wasn't that they were real butchers per se. As Rollins put it, those identifiable groups.
They are reps.
So he said that, okay, they are the hairdressers associations, and there are people in there that this is not to say that fashion designers, we have excellent fashion designers and all, but the average Ghanaian hairdresser or dressmaker is not a master's degree holder. The average Ghanaian dressmaker probably has a secondary at the time, yes, at the time. And look, I'm even thinking in today's terms, at the time will not be someone with a first degree or someone with a master's degree. There were people with maybe secondary education or middle school living certificate or JHS those days. So what will be their appreciation of the legal language, for instance, that is required. And you know that there are some things that you need a trained mind to be able to comprehend better. As I said, I'm a political science person, and I believe that every Ghanaian, every citizen has right to participate in a process. But you're only asking that let it be such that it will be a fair representation of the brains that we need in order to get something good for ourselves. But I think Bafa Jimandri also, he praises the committee that was able to come out with this constitution, in that you look at this constitution, it has been the longest constitution ever in the history of this country. So if we claim that the hairdressers and the butchers and all, they came up with a constitution that was manipulated by the PNDC at the eve of the adoption of the constitution, some manipulations took place, according to some historians, some political analysts. Some manipulations took place
for the referendum.
No, in that some clauses were smuggled in. That in the initial document, some of those clauses were not there. The indemnity clauses and all that people have raised issues over. That why do you bring in these things if you have nothing to hide? But that is for another discussion. And if they have been able to come up with a constitution from 1992, we are in 2023, 30 years, then it tells you they did quite a good job for it to last this long. But well, that is on a lighter note. But it is because it set up institutions that we have seen are working. And was yesterday the president at the Ghana Bar Association, their meeting, was talking, and he spent a lot of time talking about corruption and corruption related issues. How I wish that these institutions would work as the president told us he's allowing them to work. How I wish as a Ghanaian.
Wishes are not horses. Dr. Abubakar, walk us through your side.
Okay, so I generally largely agree to a greater extent with most of the things Dr. AMANOR said. What actually propelled us into adopting the 1992 Constitution were largely internal pressures and also some external pressures. Internal pressure, particularly from the MFJ, the Movement for Freedom and Justice.
Where Kwesi played a very strong role.
Very strong role, yes. And even where I think our current president was also part of it. Yes.
Kwesi was part of it.
Kwesi, yeah, they were all part of it. And so this MFJ played a very important role. And then, as Dr. AMANOR said, the 1988 local government elections were to usher us into democracy. But as Rawlings did not want us to have political multi-party democracy, he had his reasons. He felt that these parties that were pushing for multi-party democracy did not have the interests of citizens at heart. They were there for self-aggrandizement. And that
has it been vindicated to some extent?
I dare say yes. Look at our politicians today.
This is hotspot for you. We say it as it's supposed to be said.
Look at our politicians. Look at their lifestyle.
We'll look at it another time.
Yes.
Let's focus on what
we're
doing
today. Look at Dr. AMANOR and I, and the way we are struggling. Yeah. So yes, he had his fears. He didn't trust the elite at the time, but then the elite too did not trust him with his non-partisan style of democracy, because they feel with that style he did not want to relinquish power. He wanted to hold on to power. And so
could it be that they didn't understand him very well?
They understood him, and they equated his style to the Unigov style of Achampong. And that actually gave them so much support. Impetus, yes. And when Rawlings started organizing these town hall meetings to educate people on the non-partisan thing, the MFJ just took it up. Every meeting they showed up, and then
asked their questions.
And asked questions and pushed and equated it to the Unigov and said it's the same thing Achampong tried to do, that Rawlings is trying to do, so people should not agree to it. And so they pushed so hard, and finally the external pressures also came in. And so Rawlings had to succumb to democratization. But Rawlings, I think he read so much of Machiavelli's books, he wouldn't just leave. So he had a way, or he found a way of staying in.
I think that book is a book that virtually every elite must read.
Yes. Yeah. And talking about the composition of the commission that drew our constitution, whether they were qualified enough or not. I don't know, but we just tend to think that the unlettered do not have anything smart in their heads, or their brains are stuffed with cottons, but they are very smart. In fact, they are the ones who raised majority of us Ghanaians. And those who we call so-called uneducated people raise children who are professors, doctors, and engineers. And so-called engineers, doctors they have raised are not even able to raise people to even finish a first degree. And yet we question their intelligence every time. And I don't think Rawlings was stupid when he asked all these people to be part of the committee. It was for a reason. And definitely he was not. He wanted a group that he could manage. He should pack it with Kwesi Pratt and Co. And how is he going to manage them? So that was a smart man.
So it's like he
we
wanted to have
democracy.
control.
We wanted democracy. He was ready to give us democracy, but on his
control.
own terms, which is what he did. And it doesn't matter whether the lawyers on the commission were 2, 3. So far as they were elite, they were going to have, or they were going to be more assertive. And so at the end of the day, they could still find ways of dominating, even though they had fewer numbers. And as you said, at the end of the day, Rawlings and his group would have to finish everything up. And so whatever they decide to do, you are not even there. And so it's even inconsequential whether you had more elites on it or not. Because at the end of the day, they would work on the final document. And they did whatever they wanted to do with it.
No,
but the good thing is, even though the 1992 Constitution has, the build-up to the development of the 1992 has some flaws, we cannot take it away that it is one single most important document that has helped the democracy of Ghana to thrive since 1992. And so it may have its flaws, but we have to be thankful to it. And we should thank Rawlings for at least, even if it was a charade, putting something together. And that thing, we have held on to it since 1992. There are flaws, and I think we would have to work on it as we grow. When you go and look at the United States, maybe some 150 years ago, they were in a worse state than we are today.
31 years.
Yes. So I think we can build on our institutions, and the Constitution provides us with a solid base, solid grounds to improve the institutions that we need to propel this nation forward.
I am so grateful, but we're talking about the body that put the 1992 Constitution together, over-dominated by non-elites, in quotes. The elite had come to power. There have been a series of reviews. How many of the elite have been able to pass those reviews?
Oh, well, for the constitutional review, remember Professor J.E.A. Mills, President Mills, it was a promise that he made to the people of Ghana that he would see to the...
Of course, it started before him.
Yes.
So, but I would love that we trace the trajectory. Because President Kufuor was a lawyer. He never felt it was appropriate to have those reviews, which were expected to have expunged some of those things that we complain about. He never did.
Well,
I stand for correction.
Each of the presidents we've had over the period, I believe that they helped in building or improving, in shaping the current constitution we have with the various laws that are passed by Parliament. So we are removing some of the provisions that we feel are not good enough for a thriving democracy like ours. Some new things are also being added, some are being expanded and all. So each government that we've had since
each of the parliaments is doing something at
exactly so. But in fact, I said each of the government because, private members' bill do not really work in this country. We've had
until recently.
Yeah, until recently. That one is even taking a very long time. But we see what will happen what will come out of it. But most of the reviews that we have seen, yes, for instance, President KOFI comes in, and one of the early laws that he will work on will be the criminal libel law. That for you journalists, you are very interested in that was removed from our books. Excellent. Other governments came, they did whatever they wanted to do, but a comprehensive review of the constitution was commissioned by Professor Mills. And I think 2 weeks ago or so, Professor Mills, when that particular commission came out, they finished their work after spending a lot of time
and
money moving around, collating views, putting them together. What happened? The government white paper. I didn't know this would come up. I would have read portions of that white paper that government issued in response to the report that the commission had brought out. And in fact, what caught my attention was in relation to development planning. That you see, this our society. It is not that we are bereft of people with brains. It's not that our people are not patriotic enough. It is not that we don't have plans. We do, just that our plans are, it's like the Ghanaian governments think 4 years, maximum 8 years. Whilst other societies are thinking...
I would love that repeated.
I only think that by the way we do our things, our governments do not think long term.
Perfect. They don't think long term. Because you know that my first term is 4 years. If I'm lucky, I get another 4-year term.
Sure.
So they think 4 years or 8 years.
Exactly so. So they think 4 years.
It's a fact.
Yeah. And that is the commission sought to review this. So it was going to be entrenched that we'll have national development policies. And no government will be able to change it.
You come, you actualize it.
You must. So your manifesto and everything, the only thing you can do is that bring your ideology to bear on the overarching policy that we have. Unfortunately, the Professor Mills' government, that commission, that put together the commission, could not agree to this, and that saddened me. That we have an opportunity for us to have a development planning commission that will do its work, and it will know that it doesn't matter whether it is the MPP now, the NDC comes, they will continue, the CPP comes, they will continue, the PMP comes, and it will be continued. Unfortunately, we lost that opportunity. I pray that we find a way of making or of reducing the powers that we have given the executive, and rather empowering some of these commissions, the statutory commissions, that will help to harness the resources and everything we have for national development. And in fact, let me just go back a little to President Rawlings with the move that he started with in coming out with the constitution. You notice the identifiable groups that Jerry Rawlings dealt with. As smart as he was building his support base. So if you watch for the NDC, it appeared that the NDC was a party for the downtrodden, for the uneducated, something like that. The masses, good. But I beg to differ. The NDC is not like that. Based on the people we have seen the NDC parade as their leaders. We've had a professor becoming president. He was a lawyer. So look at their leadership.
No, could it not be that they evolved over time?
Was it a matter of evolution or it was a matter of strategy? Because just in 1996, Professor Mills came into the picture. So it tells you it wasn't that the NDC, it was just an evolution. It just, metamorphosed from a mass party, and now it was now trying to. Some scholars believe that they deliberately courted some of these elites,
okay,
so that they will give a different face to the NDC.
So for sure, they started as a mass-based group with those.
Who were the secretaries that they had?
Let us know.
They had justices. They had lawyers. These were the people who were with them, the PNDC. So the PNDC was not a juncture that was bereft of intelligent people and of the intellectuals. No, they were there.
So could you say that they were smart in involving the downtrodden?
I think so. And they also pushed an agenda that the Dankwa-Buzia is an elite party. Looking at the beginnings of the Dankwa-Buzia from they want to trace it from the UGCC.
But is it true that it is an elitist group?
If we trace it, quick attempt at tracing it from the UGCC, the main reason why Nkrumah left was this elitism nature of the UGCC.
So we can establish that it is an elitist group.
It was from the beginning. Now it is equally a mass party.
Okay.
Because the grassroots, they are equally supporting the NPP as well.
So they also evolved to become what they are today.
They are evolving. And in fact, that is the beauty of politics. We keep evolving. Politics keeps evolving all the time. And these political parties are also evolving. Unfortunately, the Nkrumah's parties, I don't know what is happening to them.
Well, we'll have another day to discuss the Nkrumah's party. Doc, where we're viewing it from, have you any other thing to add to what Dr.
It's prophecy, so I take it.
Amen. Amen. That's what we all aspire
yes.
to. With regard to the NDC being a mass party, and the fact that they are not really a mass party, but they were trying to court the support of. I mean, Dr. Amano questioned the leadership, but you don't expect the NDC to go to the market and pick a tomato seller who has no education to be their flag bearer.
I thought you said that they are equally very intelligent.
Let's leave that one aside. Okay, you don't expect them to go to the market and pick a tomato seller to be their being a mass party. Simply, it does not mean they cannot have highly educated people in their midst, but I think maybe it's tied to their ideology, the social democratic ideology, where they are tilted more towards welfarism. Sure. When we talk about welfarism, then it touches more of the poor. And so that I think that is how we should understand.
In fact, it gets the poor to identify with you.
That is it. So that is where we should look at they being a mass party from, and not from the fact that their leadership are highly educated people. Yeah, that's where we should look at it from. And then on the matter of the report, the white paper of the review commission, I think it all boils down to the political will.
Sure.
The political will. They are not just willing, the executive in particular is not just willing to relinquish the power that it has. It's so powerful.
In fact, I wish you would put it this way, that they are not prepared to relinquish the powers that the Rawlings' constitution gave to the executive.
Yes.
Even though at the time he gave it to himself, they had a challenge.
That is it. But yet now they don't want to leave it. So
was Rawlings wrong?
He wasn't. It was that bad. Why are you holding on to it? So you see, when I say Rawlings was a Machiavellian, you understand now.
Wow.
Every other president doesn't want to what? To release that. They all want to hold on to it. At a point, I was so happy when President Nanado said he was going to make the local government elections an elective one. And that's where the challenge came. But I was
elective but partisan.
I was just happy that it was going to be even if partisan but elective. I was planning to even go and stand for Tamale Metropolitan Assembly if it was really made an elective
so you
one.
leave the classroom.
I would have left for that. I would have stood for that.
Of course,
but I was so disappointed when in the end, whatever happened. It changed. It didn't happen. So it all boils down to what? The political will to bring about change. They don't have it.
But I guess the disappointment was based on the provisions of the Constitution or the Local Government Act.
Oh. You mean with what?
Which was saying that the district level something should not be partisan. I'm sure that is what caused.
Okay, there was a debate.
Yeah.
You see, I think the NDC itself did not want that. I think they were just pretending.
But that provision, is it an entrenched provision? If even it is an entrenched provision.
Let's go to a referendum.
Exactly.
And knowing our president, and when he wants something, he can get it done. Look at the new regions that he created.
Yeah.
We had to go to referendum. He ensured that it was done. So if he's somebody, if he wants something to be done, he would do it, damn the consequences. So that tells you that this constitutional review thing that has failed to be implemented over years, not just the current president, but even Mahama did not have the political will, and they still don't have it.
Maybe there's something juicy in there that we are not aware of.
Oh, definitely.
But President Mahama is promising that Article 71 holders and the ex gratia, should he become president again, he is going to make sure that thing is scrapped off our books.
We are waiting.
Let's see what happens.
We are waiting impatiently.
So that at the end of every 4 years,
will he be able to do it?
So at the end of the 4 years, nobody takes ex gratia.
I don't know. I don't understand what he means. But I want to believe, maybe especially with members of parliament who have been in parliament for over 20 years and every 4 years they take ex gratia.
We'll get to that when we start going to the deeps of the various parliaments and their contribution to the development of our political will. So, I'm sure the Constitution itself had, like we just introduced, there are some clauses that are entrenched and they call for referendum.
Yeah.
And there are others that Parliament can do, and those that Parliament can just review, those ones have gone through. But entrenched positions, how come that those things that are like, pardon my language though, small evils, are in the entrenched portions?
Because
example,
the freedoms that we enjoy,
they're entrenched.
Yes.
Yeah.
Such
Perfectly.
that nobody
can just
get up and say that, okay, now media censorship is coming back. No.
Perfect.
It is because we need to protect those ones. They form the backbone of a democracy.
In fact, that's why I said some, not all of them.
So
because the indemnity clause, is it not entrenched?
Yeah.
It is.
Wow.
It is.
Yeah. And it is something that we don't want to. Well, now we don't have functionaries of the PNDC. I don't think that we are going to be a vindictive society that will want to always be visiting yes, on
retaliations.
Those things, they don't build societies. Reconciliation Commission came with President
Akufo.
Yeah, President Akufo. We expected some few issues came, but we expected that we will gradually heal as a society. Moving on. Well, some of those things are still there. We still don't have answers to some few things. But I think people have suffered. And if there is a need for some form of closure
to those issues,
we have to consciously do that so that we can move on. But I think we need to also remember that presidents and leaders do things in office. We should protect them. Some things they do because of the exigencies of the situation in office. That you can't just allow some things to pass. Imagine President Bush is brought before International Court of Justice for crimes against humanity in the war in Iraq and other places. How
and Clinton for Libya.
Yes, as for the Libyan case, maybe I believe that in your schedule we'll talk about some of these injustices to Africa. But so the entrenched provisions, very important. There is a need for us to protect some things such that the president cannot just touch those institutions or those bodies or those provisions in the constitution. If we allow them, Parliament can do anything anytime because they feel they have interest. So we need those entrenched provisions in our laws. Some should stay. Those that we think that we need to have a second look at, then we look at the processes to get those things removed or modified.
Okay, I'll take the last one from they call it Dr. Abubakar. Then Anamwa will come in to give us that first account translations and then summary, and then we move on to the next one, which is going to be the 1992 election that ushered in the president in 1993.
Yeah. I think what I would love to see, there are so many things I would love to see change with the 1992 Constitution. Issues of appointment of certain key institutional heads. If we really want to move our democracy forward, and if we really want those institutions to be independent, then we have to move beyond appointment of these heads. For example, the appointment of the IGP, the appointment of electoral commissioner. You know, I wish especially the electoral commissioner would be a pure civil servant where people rise through the ranks, so that before you become an EC, you have served within the electoral commission at various levels, and maybe finally when they call for an EC, people would apply and it is actually competitive, so that nobody has a hand in appointing anybody, so that this acrimony we have, these apprehensions we have each time elections is nearing. Just watch. Right now, NDC and some minority parties are saying EC is going to disenfranchise people by making the district offices of Electoral Commission only the registration points.
Have they a point?
To some extent, they do.
They do.
To some extent, they do. Most people will not turn up. It will put most people off because of that. Because
and these are the things that the other minority parties are saying.
Yes.
But the EC says, no, I'm going in.
So you wait. If NDC was in power and NPP was in opposition, they would have cried foul as well. And this distrust.
And you know, a lot of the electoral reviews came with a push of the NPP. From the opaque ballot box to the transparent.
Yeah.
From the black and white.
To colored.
From the thumbprint to photo ID card.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I don't understand why in this time they are not seeing eye to eye to this. But at the appropriate time we'll look at these things also.
Yeah, so let me just wrap up.
Yeah.
The NDC or the NPP always distrust the EC. Why? Because it is always the other party that appoints. And so if maybe we have a pure civil servant in that position, and we know that his stay in office is not determined or does not depend on any president, maybe we would have some kind of trust, some kind of confidence in the Electoral Commission. But I feel right now the trust of people in the Electoral Commission, not just the current commission, but even past ones, have been shaky because of the mode of appointment of the Electoral Commission. It has been shaky
after Afarijan left office.
But even during Afarijan, the NPP had issues with Afarijan until he declared Kufuor the president.
98.
In fact, on that note, we're going for the very first break. We'll be back to look at the other issues.
So Timbuktu, Ghana, Mali, Sumanguru, you know what you're shown. What you're shown. So Timbuktu, Ghana, Mali, Sumanguru, you know what you're shown.
In the Bay 98.3 FM.
Ajana, welcome.
Thank you, say.
Na ewie jama you kakre nwa.
Na efutum reshe begwen rishe na manfo. Acheku huru wa stakeholders no rishe wonti na wode. Ye pinche ho na za wakan ye mama 40.
Oye. Yami adwanche tina.
Yami admo baba.
Matters.
Na mama fa kuntwom oche laptops ma teachers a we post one aba new teachers wo dum aba. The Biamaka de Ghana, the future is for Mba. Inti laptops watch no 30, Mba do 20, main for the 10. Inti this shows today, Ghana Mba no be in ye. For 66 years, main for disappointing.
Anamwa, say, a best show do.
Oh, Miss Shamodo.
Oh, young quay.
But I say, Busia Fuma Madro, na in the hotspot, the Abugafoods who come on, wash a fee up my hakron, a docun being in Broponen, ye aba with the kind of two way, who are member Otto and the name, or ye 1992 Constitution, first election of the Fourth Republic of Ghana. Na ashas na one my baby for one thing I wash that is police agreement the IGP Kopimo Parliament, Walter Tonano, na da in painful kind day. Da orisin enukumdu a nkrofudi ma da orpopu mobotu ma aboa man sachi bia owo de oba police edwuma mu obrin fan reforms etum na aba nende mpanyfo a watena sen ye Dr. MALIHA ABUBAKARI nye Dr. EBENEZER LARTEY wonyina wo fi political science department ewo University of Education Winibaha na Dr. LARTEY wo nekasem no ohyanso de Mropona waye na fe apima hakun dokun bi 1992 constitution say di dwuman edi mfe adosin edi mfe adosan ba akon enye enyimdefo na wodon waye nampo onhia na wonhia enyimdefo nkoten na wetum ayembran deminti na wofa nkrofo horo ma waye hon constituent assembly ma wotum hyehye mbran ekubi today Ghana Bar Association National Union of Ghana Students enyi ekuhuru bi no ho ma wanhyeda afo anka ho ma wodi yew ochim de mbra wahyehye abua ode dame mbra yi a yedi ye adwuma mbropon constitution ni ono na oye mbra ache papa wo mani na abakosem edimfi edosa baako na yi na ochire de hona wotena hyehye dame mbran wo bo hon ho modin papa ode nkrofo kan de esoman adirbachi mbra na ye adwuma wo ye nsachi biwum ode oye nkrofo na waka na onhyedare no kwarbi nyim na se dam na otimpo a ono hu ni namum dam nsachi na nkrofo ka de wo ye dem roba ya mpinfo abro Rollins ni kan afon botu na wam hon bambo bi bronyisi immunity o se nya dam na oche namum nkrofo na worka na Dr. MALIHA ochim de nkrofo a wahyehye afi apima hakun dokun bi embran wo ye binum a wonyimde ho atete nkrofo ma ho aye kukudam ho abaye engineers na ade adam engineers impo ware mpontum tete nkrofo a wote de ho na kyerede nkrofo a wahyehye afi apim ahakron onye dokun ebin embroponen onyi kwan de ye bu ho na nyimtia wonyimde nyimdi a wowon na oboy ma wotumi tintim mbra otedam ma mbran etum aye adwuma papa ochim de afi apima hakun edokun ebin embran oye kronkronkronkra na omani wandasi bia nche wonfama Rollins a oboy ma dam embrapon obay ode insha abanhuru ekuhuru wodoto Ghana don ka ho na ma yetumi anyambra mesesera infedo sabakon dirukui embran oye dwuma a nsachi biara ntum embem Dr. LARTEY baby no ochim de embraponi embra rupi nara na parliament ahyehyɛ a bren obwa ma mbren oye adwuma ochem de nchen sachere pa o de nche woye wo mbren mu wontumi ye omanpen mills na brodo of the constitution review committee by woye nhyehyɛ wo bo apro wo discuss the dwuma pi na so kratia band todo oye white paper no besi da mabri dam nhyehyɛ onye adwuma ochem de senche oye adwuma nche nhyehyɛ a NDPC woyen aban biara ba da membran na odi be yedwuma na so onam ma amayeku no wara war printi wa mama dam hyehyɛ na yedwuma nti NDPC hone hyehyɛ na osinchen na wara hone den na wodi yedwuma senka wodi NDPC di yedwuma nche aban biara ba hyehyɛ ohon na obotuodo ochem bio de adwen na abinum wo de NDC amayeku wonya nyimdefo no kware nyim o de NDC nya nyimdefo wonya nyimdefo Mbrapon na bayin a manyeku ni sha se no nchere biara 1996 na Professor Mills oba NDC amayeku mu oye professor oba NDC amayeku mu na mankrofo ka de NDC nyimdefo onye nokwar de nye ntetekwafo na asabi nkrofo a sabia wonyimde na wodom NDC odo onye nokwar ihwe NDC ma mpemfu pinara na wowom wonyimdefo na na AWUKU bi sende asonye de amayeku ruko na nyim na nkrofo da amayeku na ye film na deminti wo so osonye dam na oti ahyesnara na nyimdefo besi da mabre na ochem de se ihwe MPP meda nsama nkrofo kan de ono nkrofo a wonyimde watsem brasim kotin na odom ono so na nche ihwa no kwa kakrom na so sesere so hwa obiara dom MPP amayeku ntuntum ka de nkrofo a sabia wonyimde nkotin na wowo oye MPP Dr. Maliha chem de NDC oye dodo hwan amayeku ode mbom so obi sabia nye de nkrofo a wonti baby nkotin wowo amayeku mu nkrofo dudu nara na wowo oye NDC amayeku mu ntomfa ho de wonyimde anade nyimde dodoara wom ode abanhu ina nche wopede woye nsachir ewo oye mbrapon mu nanso dam mbrapon no wontumi nsachira woda woye wonye wom osa ablan nem sifu de mi mbra omanpen na ado bai oye de nche oboto aba na weyi aba nem sifu ewo Ghana ha nanso okan echi na bi nabi abahunti dam hyehye ntuma nye adwuma a senche oye adwuma nnonara opede nche obegina ewo Tamale Metro nanka wakọ oye waye ablanem sinyi ewo Tamale Metro na Dr. Latempo bisando nsenche be fi classroom wasina ma ya krado na ncha ono be si bezikan wo Tamale Metro ho na so onam de da omapen kan wentum wanko ana wambaniti na ono sunu susua owon oka de bi ochem de Muhammad Sesha onyi pede obasache mbrapon mu kra de mbenyin nampa de mbran yenye sachi wo mede so ohwe Muhammad motena abasin ko ne sesere ohu womibi na Dr. Latte bembio no ochem de embrebi wo nhyehyɛ ni mu oyɛ mbrapon mu a onyi de wodin saka oyɛ entrench constitution clauses onyi kwan de wodin saka ɔde wogyan ma ɔtsenara Dr. Maliha bembio no ochem de ndeme pii wo hɔ a ɔwɔ de wɔsesa wɔ mbrapon mu na bi nye nkrɔfo a abana pa hwan anam abankro wodo pa hwan to ndwuma no bibiti de IGP nyi electoral commission hwan chairperson ochem de sehwe electoral commission de ya onnam de abana wodo no pa no nti embiripi bohwen na amanyeku a wonya abana afan wan hyedara nye jedi wɔ no mu ode de oyɛ NDC oyɛ MPP wonyinara wɔyɛ namum so oyɛ de edwuman wɔrepo wɔ bi a ɔwɔ edwuma no mu wanema na wakɔsoro na wakapre na wanya tum de ɔno na ɔnde edwuma no anoda nche obiara na nyi bagye ho de demi pe ampa wafa kwan no do na wakron no ma wɔyɛ dem de bi ncho no jedi wɔ mu na nso sesere ma ɔte de aben wɔdo na ɔpa no de Ghana fo nhyadara nyi jedi wɔ mu NDC ye MPP ye AWUKU ha na yede fon the canarisi
ya maamo
medasi
I am a point na full stop ni nyina je ni nyina egu
This is Radio Windy Bay 98.3 FM
Manchester no sumangu no
So that was the translation, a can translation that we had from our brother Anamwa. Yempede obabande o yantaso ente no abon tofa no da ma. So my producers are working at the background. You can join us with your WhatsApp messages on 0503923158. 0503923158. Same number go for SMS, and of course you can add your Facebook messages live on Radio Windy Bay 98.3 FM, and you would have your voice or your message read right here on this network. So, my brother and sister, we are back. Yeah. So, the Constitution came into being, and then we were to go for the first election that will usher in the Fourth Republic and the first president. Dr. Abubakar, walk us through how things happen.
The 1992 election, a very historic election. The first election that ushered in the Fourth Republic, and the first election after the promulgation of the 1992 Constitution. It was historic in the sense that we had a president who was known. I mean, he wasn't somebody we didn't know. He'd been our president for, I think, over 10 years, almost 11 years. And so he was continuing as the president. But in the run-up to the election, or even in the aftermath of the election, there were so many allegations from the camp of opposition parties. They generally claimed that the election was rigged to the extent that the opposition, I think, was it the main opposition or was it coalition of opposition parties, declared the stolen verdict. They said the election was the main opposition, right? They said the election was stolen. And because of that, they made a decision not to partake in the parliamentary election. I think it is informative to mention that the election in the 1992 was not as we have it today. These days, we have both the parliamentary and presidential election on the same day. The first election was not like that. We had the presidential election first, followed by the parliamentary elections. And so after everything was done, Rawlings was declared winner with, I think, over 58% of the votes cast. But this did not sit well with the opposition parties. Social commentators, and then let's say historians and political scientists, because I believe I was a kid then, but I still remember some of the things that happened, some of the political parties that took part. Coming from Tamale, we used to have the Heritage Party, right? We used to call it Pamindo Mbala Odo. Like a man and a woman, Odo Party, that's what we used to call it. And then we used to have Kopna Dako's party. We used to call it No Kurugono Obehim. It's like the cock and then the chickens. That's what we used to call it. I mean, those were fun days. But after the election, people were not happy. But were the allegations of the opposition party true? Or were they just mere allegations? I think one thing that I would say is that, indeed, there were irregularities in that election. But the volume of the irregularities did not warrant political parties, the opposition parties, to declare the election a stolen verdict. And especially the measures that were put in place. It was very difficult. It would have been difficult for the NDC to rig the ballot the manner in which the opposition parties said they did. Both local and international observers said the election was free and fair. They admitted to the fact that there were what? Irregularities. So, for example, though the ballot box was opaque, before the election or before voting started, the ballot box was shown to everyone, and political parties had their reps there. So even if the NDC could maybe smuggle in staffed ballots in some areas, it wouldn't have been widespread. Besides that, votes were counted at the polling station at the close of what? Voting. And elections were declared there. And the party's representatives accompanied the what? The electoral officers to the constituency coalition centers and so on. So yes, there were irregularities, but
the quantum.
That's it. I don't think it was that huge enough to mar the
whole process.
Yeah, the whole process. So I think the boycott of the parliamentary election, I don't know whether to say the opposition parties feared they would be humiliated in the parliamentary election, and so they decided to stay off, or they really believed that going for it would just end up as the presidential. But I believe if they had gone for the parliamentary election, they would have won quite a number of seats. I'm sure, because they had some strongholds. They could have won quite a number of seats. But they boycotting it made the parliament a very weak one, because it was dominated by the NDC. And I think they also defeated the purpose of what? Rallying people and calling people that we should push for democratization. Why would you push for democratization, and when you finally have it, you just leave everything to Jerry Rawlings? By leaving Parliament controlled by NDC, there was no opposition, and everything the president wanted, he had it what? Very easy. But at least if they had gone for the parliamentary election, I believe strongly they would have won very, very good number of seats. But then they didn't do that. I think I will rest my case here, and then.
Well,
yeah,
thank you, Dr. Maliha. Well, for the 1992 elections, some issues are raised. We should bear in mind that that was going to be the founding, in fact, that was the founding elections for the Fourth Republic. And if we, upon hindsight, realize that, yes, many things didn't go as
expected by some other groups.
Yes, when you compare it to today's elections, things we have gone we've come a long way. Yes, but in 1992, we were voting in opaque ballot boxes. Some ballot boxes were in classrooms, inside the room, and people would queue outside. So the allegation will be that, okay, people will now be able to staff the ballot boxes when they go in to vote alone. Some, allegations upon allegations of things that went on. But if we want to look at what led to the political party that contested first.
Yeah.
If you look at the political party that contested, then it can feed into the allegations that some parties came up, especially the opposition parties came up after the presidential ballot, and the reasons why they didn't contest the parliamentary elections, because they felt that it would amount to nothing, because the NDC had, as they said, has stolen the ballot. Now, the NDC in around 1989, there had been a research, and that research by the NDC pointed to the fact that should the PNDC become a political party led by Jerry John Rawlings, they are likely to win elections, to form a government. So the PNDC metamorphoses into a political party with Jerry Rawlings as the leader. In fact, he came out as a candidate. It was in September. It was almost at the end of the registration of candidates when Jerry Rawlings joined. So J.J. Rawlings comes in as a candidate. He was the chairman of the PNDC. Definitely, there were accusations of abuse of incumbency. But yes, he was the head of state. Wherever the head of state moves, state protocol will move, security will move, the media will follow.
Yes.
Opposition leader, you will not have it that way because you are not in government. So, over exploitation. If there could be anything like over exploitation itself is not a good thing. So,
but it's not different as it is today.
Exactly. That is why I'm coming. That you look at what happened in 1992, 1996, then year 2000. Year 2008, even now. Once the president moves, these things must move with the president. You don't expect that the president wants to organize a program and the police will not grant permit. But in 1992, it happened that the MPP will be granted permit to organize a rally. Then some few hours, the permit will be withdrawn. Yes, some of those things. So the MPP will justified in saying that, well, they use ways and means. Because we were supposed to meet our people. We are set up, ready for Professor Dubois to come and address the people. And the police will withdraw their permit and will tell us that they are not assuring us of our security. And that time, the security situation in Ghana, it is unlike today. Today, we are empowered today. Social media has also added to it that things happening here, you could be anywhere in Ghana and you see it live. But in those days, it wasn't like that. So security was an issue. All these things, when you put them together, then you might think that the MPP, they have a case in saying that it was a stolen ballot. Now, let me go back to the political parties that contested. Now, there was the Progressive Alliance. The Progressive Alliance was made up of the NDC. So the NDC, then the NCP, National Convention Party, then
Eagle Party.
The Eagle Party. Every Ghanaian living everywhere. What a name for a party. So you look at that alliance, and in fact, for the alliance, what happened was their intelligence told them that if they are able to get the Nkrumahs into their fold, that is the NDC, it was hands down.
It's a done deal.
So they tried hard to court the Nkrumahs into their fold. And for the National Convention Party, then led by Aka, in fact, Aka and one Kweku Boateng. In fact, Kweku Boateng founded the NCP. But at their Congress, Aka
was elected.
Now, with Aka being elected candidate, Aka now joins forces with the NDC. Then every Ghanaian...
Call Kenson Aka.
Yes, a Winnibarian. So, Call Kenson Aka.
Yes.
So, Call Kenson Aka takes the party, hands it over to the NDC in the Progressive Alliance. Now, every Ghanaian living everywhere, the leadership of the Eagle Party, how do you pronounce it? Eagle or
Eagle?
No, but initially there was an issue with the Eagle.
Yes, it's
okay.
Eagle.
Okay.
So the Eagle Party, those who formed the party, it is alleged that, in fact, they were elements of the PNDC that are deliberately moved so that in trying to forge alliance, they said, okay, now we are joining forces with the NDC to encourage others to join. So some of these things are conspiracy theories. But yes, they joined the NDC in the Progressive Alliance. Now, Kesenaka was rewarded with the vice presidential slot. So he became the vice presidential candidate for the NDC. Then the MPP, Albert Dubois. In 1988, in fact, your production team has confirmed 1988 February was when that's public lecture by Professor Albert Dubois. So Professor Dubois becomes the candidate for the MPP, and he goes into an election. So the MPP, Professor Dubois knows that he has the strongholds in Ashanti region, stronghold in the Eastern region, stronghold in Brong Ahafo region. Unfortunately, the election results will tell that he was beaten in his own backyard.
Eastern.
Yes. So those dynamics. Now, then the National Independent Party, NIP. Yes, NIP. Then you have PHP, and I remember those days that there was a song. Akatamanso kata obiaraso akoko kube lobe nyoso. I remember very well that the NDC's umbrella covers everything. So the Akoko for the Kwabena Dako's party, Kube for Professor Dr. Hilary Man's party, Lobby General Eskin's party, then Osono MPP. So the euphoria around that time, we're not too old, but you still remember those things around. So these were the parties that went into elections, and Jerry John Rawlings already known everywhere. JJ was a household name. Yes. But how about President Buahin contesting him, and the constraints within which President Buahin was operating? I started talking about that state media. And in those days, we didn't have too many media houses. Yes. So they were virtually missing.
That's why the free press and whatnot were loud enough on them.
Yes. Even that it didn't do much.
The Crusading Guide, eh?
Crusading Guide.
That came later, I guess.
Yes. But I know free press was there. Yeah, I know. I remember free press very well. There was another.
Was it something Chronicle?
The Ghanaian Chronicle.
The Ghanaian Chronicle, something like that was there for them, for the opposition parties.
So these things happened. But the Nkrumahist, what happened to the Nkrumahist? The Nkrumahist, Dr. Hilary Liman and Nkrumahist. People's Heritage Party and Nkrumahist Party. National Independent Party of Kwabena Daku, Nkrumahist Party. So why would the Nkrumahist parties be fragmented like this? Already one of them, a major one, had joined the Progressive Alliance.
Yes.
So at the end of the day, they have succeeded in breaking the Nkrumahis. They had succeeded in getting one of them to join. Now it was left with the Dankwa Buzia Dumbo. Dankwa Buzia was standalone. It goes into the elections, and as Dr. Maliha informed us, the NDC wins that particular poll. Now, elections, the presidential elections held in November, the chairman of the PNDC wins that election.
And it's declared.
Yes, it's declared. Now, the opposition parties, interestingly, they were demanding some few things to be done before the parliamentary elections in December. They demanded that the INEC, the Electoral Commission, should be changed. That on the Electoral Commission, there should be political party representatives on the EC, which I think wouldn't have helped in any way. They would have fought almost throughout for political parties to have reps on the EC to superintend over the elections. So that was one thing they were demanding. They were demanding that there should be a transitional team drawn from the various political parties so that they will be able to supervise the parliamentary elections and the handing over. Because the fear that the opposition parties had was that if they allowed this EC, I mean those days, if they allowed the EC that had run the presidential elections and they claimed had been stolen for the NDC, if they allowed the same Electoral Commission to run the parliamentary elections, same story was going to be repeated. The NDC was going to win. So there was a need for some changes to come into the system. Unfortunately, those demands, and we know Jerry Rawlings wouldn't grant. So those demands were not granted. They were asking for all those in exile to be granted amnesty so that they come back and many things. They needed funds. Those people, once they come, they will come with some funds. So all these things, at the end of the day, well, JJ Rawlings and the PNDC then would not grant. So election was supposed to run. But because of these allegations and the noise they were making, in fact, religious leaders, we have Christian and Muslim leaders even tried to mediate between the PNDC, NDC, and the opposition parties. Unfortunately, because of the entrenched stance of these two, of the opposition parties and the PNDC, NDC, it happened that the religious leaders, Christian and Muslim leaders, couldn't make any headway. They couldn't come up with any resolution to the impasse. So elections will take place in December. Election to be organized in December. Now the opposition, they come together and they say that no,
we won't participate.
They are not participating. So the NDC should have it. Now the NDC too, okay, there's one opportunity, 200 seats. And what happened? Now that alliance, the Progressive Alliance, they asked the individual political parties to run. So they run. And the NDC will sweep at 193 or so. They will sweep almost all the seats. 2 independent candidates won their seats and joined that parliament. But effectively, it was an NDC show. But interestingly, some places where they expected the other parties to win, not the NDC, but the other parties in the alliance to win, unfortunately, they lost. And the NDC and the MPP told them, well, we told you they will rig the elections, and they have. Nevertheless, in fact, the NDC had overwhelming majority in that parliament. So the first parliament of the Fourth Republic
was referred to as a rubber stamp.
It was a rubber stamp. It was an NDC. They had the freedom. And when we look at the candidates that stood and their vice presidential, I would just want to mention them for the education of your listeners. Okay.
Yeah.
Then the NDC, Jerry John Rawlings, and he had called Nkensenaka as the running mate. Albert Edubuan had Roland Al-Hassan as the running mate. Then Dr. Hila Liman had Isaac Cheneboa as a running mate. Kwabena Dako, interestingly, have na Afali Sakifiu. I remember I used a book in the secondary school, English book. So we had Na Afali Sakifiu as the running mate, and Emmanuel Eskin had Ibrahim Mahama as a running mate. Now, people talk about this balance that political parties are now seeking to bring to the presidential slot. That you bring a southerner, you bring a northerner. The NDC has proven over the years that whenever they didn't follow that, they won. President Rawlings went with a southerner, Christian, also went with a southerner called Kesenaka, and he said he was a Christian. So southerner Christian, they won. 1996, southerner Christian in J.J. Rawlings, Professor Mills, southerner and Christian, they won.
That was the second term.
Yeah. The second term. Now, the next time that the NDC will win, it will be a southerner Christian and a northerner Christian. The next time the NDC will win will be a northerner Christian and a southerner Christian. So you see, when people try to bring religion into our politics, I feel very uncomfortable. You know, we don't vote because someone is a Christian or someone is a Muslim. We vote because we see something good in the candidate or the running mate you are bringing. So this thing where we are hammering and people jostling and so that let's get a Muslim. No, it doesn't work. All that will work is that give us a competent person. And the NDC has proven to us that you don't need to balance that equation in any way to win elections. All you need is that give us people who will deliver. And we have seen it. Maybe Dr. Maliha, people that we should be thinking of. Right?
Yes.
So these dynamics, things turn out that at the end of the day, Kesenaka, as running mate for J.J. Rawlings, they did a trick and they won. Then the opposition parties, they boycotted the parliamentary elections. So no problem. We'll still do it. And they had the first parliament. And I blame the MPP for not giving the Fourth Republic a good start in parliament. In that, if the MPP had been in parliament, had been in the first parliament of the Fourth Republic, I believe that things would have started very well. Because those days, look at the people that the MPP had. The J.H. Mensahs were there. The Kufuados were still there, even though they were quite young. But they had people who could have contributed a lot to building our parliament and our democracy. Unfortunately, they decided not to. And I still think that they should have joined the first parliament, and there could have been some changes, some laws could have, things could have been better. Once it was a one-sided thing, no more scrutiny will come will be brought to bear on bills that were being passed or on loans that were being contracted and all, because, well, we are all the same stock, so things will move very easy for them. So for our first elections, these were the issues. But as I said, some other issues would come in to help us, in that now we had a working constitution, and that working constitution, we will start putting together proper institutions for a functioning democracy. So commissions will be put together. Now that we have a parliament will now help. So the executive, as our constitution provides, the executive will make the nominations and they'll go to the scrutiny, the vetting and approval of parliament. So we started building those institutions. We now had a proper electoral commission, SHRAJ, those institutions. Now we started establishing them. And those institutions that were established, they have become what I will call the defense of our democracy and fighting against corruption and injustice in our system.
Even though it is alleged that they've not fought enough.
Yes, I agree, they've not fought enough.
In fact, when he just said fighting against corruption and injustices, I laughed. Collins, talking about the 1992 election again, I think one issue the opposition parties, they really had a point, had to do with the voter register. Yeah. They claimed it was bloated.
Yeah.
And I think to some extent
they had a point.
Yeah, they had a point, because I am told at the time the population of Ghana was around 14 to 15.5 million, and out of this, the voter register was over 8 million.
All right.
Yeah, and so they were saying this was a bloated register.
But what was the stratification of the age ranges at the time?
I think it was 18, wasn't it?
No, we're talking about the spread.
Oh, okay. Well, my checks or my research reveals that actually the actual voter registration should have been around 6.5 million. And not the over 8 million that we had.
Okay.
And so they have a point there. And also the registration exercise that was done for the 1988, was it 79 local elections?
Okay, 88.
That was 88.
88, yes.
Was the same register that was used. No new register was compiled. They opened the register for a month for people to come and register. But I think the opposition parties still had issues at the time. So most of them...
In fact, I participated in that registration exercise.
Good. And so most of them...
I can confidently say that there were a lot of foreigners that registered.
Yeah. And so most people did not
even
register.
Young man that came and we asked you, where do you come from? He said, his name is Konjoku. From where? There became a challenge. From Nima. So Nima cannot be a hometown.
Well, he was born in Nima, so...
Yeah.
Oh,
so
yeah,
the register was really, really an issue. And also, I think the fact that most Ghanaians were in political exile, wanted to come back home to register, but I think the period was so short.
They could
not have. So some people, to some extent, were disenfranchised. And you talked about opposition parties wanted to be on INEC during the period, and it just goes back to the point I was raising on the fact that even Frititi, 1992, people had issues with the way and manner our electoral commissioners are appointed. And so, and that particular issue is still very relevant today, that we need to do something about. Still very relevant. And talking about, on the back of the 1992 Constitution, we had a functioning parliament that is now able to set up institutions of state on which our democracy will thrive. But the question is, how functional are these institutions? We have every institution that we need for our democracy to thrive, but they are just not functional. And I think it all boils down to the powers that the president or the executive has. Special prosecutor, auditor general, electoral commission, Shraj, and all that. But
you miss out
they
on the
seem
police.
not to be functioning. The police and so on. They seem not to be functioning the way we want them to function. And so there is something wrong with the powers, the overwhelming powers that the Constitution has granted the executive. And I think if we really want our democracy to thrive,
we have
to look at that again.
Yeah. Well, on that note, I want to believe that the first election, even though it was challenging, it set the pace for our democracy. We will take a break. Our big brother will give us the summary in translation. Then we'll take your final words and we'll drop the curtains on today's production.
98.3 Windy Bay. 98.3 FM.
The wait is over. The long wait is over. Hotspot is back on Radio Windy Bay 98.3 FM on every Tuesday between 7:30 and 10 p.m. I'm sure you really want to be part of this intellectual discourse, devoid of political coloration. I mean, partisan political coloration. The producers are there to do the fact-checking of everything that you say, and you are sure to be cross-fired. If you don't give us the facts, others will supply the facts. I know you don't want to miss it. Catch us on Radio Windy Bay 98.3 FM and you are there.
Oh, they be Musa.
Yeah, Bufraba.
Musa cry.
And to Abanabi.
Oh, they be. I say there now. Say what the cinema vans and was a Bruna song about Bruna song.
NCC for no way the man.
I'm the no information service.
No, NCC your information service.
Namna so or the radio. Those days, Akasanoma, you have been my no sick and ten. You cannot dash a cocoon who baby now. No, you did. Namin do been to Namit say that already. That's why we are here.
Yo, miente.
But I say, yes, or na for today being Dr. MALIHA ABUBAKARI no shase or chim de afi apima hakun do kwen bin about one. Ama yekwa wonyi abana fan anjin sunsun na ntum about one was shase what one man pengin din ansa na wato mbrehye begofo no din o chim de nzema nhyada ankoyi papa ewo about no mu adakaba wado to abanara na asam wo ho adakaba na nmu yesum igina kire hu dowum na onu nti amama amanyeku a wonyi aban afan wanje oye abatu sunsun don to chim de ekuhuru a wo bo hwe aban wo chim de abatu no koye de namum nzama na ankoye abatu no ye namum nzama na ahyada anko duye nzama ankoye wo abatu no mu nyo o chim de abana what way ne de oyara NDC na wodi nkunyim ewo abanamu na ekura no wonya abana afan wa hyadara anje nsunsuandon antum ose bia na amayeku a wonya abana afan hon nkrofo no mpo anche owode wodi nkunyim NDC wodi nkunyim ewo ho na ni na ache de abana koye de namum nzema bi ahyada ankoye namum ye de wo wi abana mu de na watchen Dr. LARTEY bamna ochim de nzema na ankoye bi oche de opaque ballot boxes box na adakaban wodi si school denim na nkrofo a woto aban wogina echi ikoma na ekurom na ato aba na ma nkrofo na wonya abana afanda workan de owar kwato aban bi a ato bi hyo ho ekwa na eyi de agum wo fan ballot staffing aye ne dam ose oye nkrofo na workan dam na mum na ontedam ode afi apim ahakron edokron ebinin MPP onam de one for one shim nimti na one shadara engine sunsun not once in them be p kutia MPP say obade wopede wajitum na waka bibia police for mon kwana so akatum na bro ma won ehedi na abadon pen was watwe ho wontum na won di dem dwumani bio ode say ehwe ku NCP kwaku buatin na otowe na wokra ehedi no yi akade onye hon flag bearer na wode wotam kobo NDC ada no oye Progressive Alliance ema akabe vice presidential candidate Zema oye Rollins ma wokro corporate oye abatwon ode dem Progressive Alliance amayeku ahrowa washa won wodziko oye nkroman na NDC tasmo bo ano na wi na obom ma wode pere afi apima hakon ye dokon bin abatwon bin ochire mi bio de oye MPP wo prince actually p den chobe adwuma wo abatumu na so anyi osa asofo hu igina de wodin sisi baba ni nara ankoye mademiti abatu no krodon amanye ku nketenketen ba bia wodom wancha wo de wodin kunyin mpo wendin kunyin ma MPP sro wonde se ka chem de ndc besin chimonsa waje na ono na esi ochembio de se oya humto de oya wade sum baba amanye sem de se obi ye Christian yi ana muslimi dem na on yas chim de se NDC hwa February wa sha asa wo to aban wade Christian fu no wade hono ko wokwa nkunyimdiba na se ehwe MPP so a wade frafra kremunyiko na Christian yiko ode unye de yede osum yede boko amanye sem kran Dr. Maliha bem no chim de afi apima hakron edokon bin kratia wode koto aban oye voter register se hwedom dodo an wo Ghana ha na waye opepe duenum yi kakra na so voter register ko tin na nkrofo wo mbobro pepe awotwe na tse ndama anhyadara ankoyi na ochim de tuma yede moma panyin oye executive o wode ye mbraponon ohwe ni yi madasi
ejana manyen Abreka card and so yes that's it for so what that's yo. So now we'll take our closing remarks on today's presentation. And at least we have looked at the 1992 constitutions. Of course, it helped us. It set the pace for the Fourth Republic. We have looked at the elections. What could they have done better as we wrap up on this thing? At that time, what could they have done better? Yeah, Nene.
Thank you. What could we have done better? Well, we always have an opportunity to say that we would have done things differently once those things belong to history.
Mm-hmm.
But we ask ourselves, what we are doing today,
how different is it?
Yes, how different are our actions today from what happened in 1992? Mm-hmm. Dr. Maliha just noted that issue about the mistrust of opposition of the Electoral Commission. It has run right from 1992 to date. So what are we doing to make our Electoral Commission stronger? I think that what we should seek to do better is reducible, maybe in a simplistic way, to patriotism.
Mm.
I feel that the challenges we have as a society, as a people of Ghana, much of it is because we are not patriotic. Why do we have our presidents and our ministers not being truthful with us? Why are
to some extent?
To some extent, yes. Why are they not? I'm saying not being truthful because what they promise us they will do, they are unable to do those things. Mm-hmm. Why are they doing that to us? Why do we have people looting our money, storing money, and stuffing them in their homes? Why these things? It is all because love for country is
virtually
it has reduced in our country. I wish that we have a system where it doesn't matter whether the MPP or the NDC wins. Whatever will be, the only thing we'll be thinking about will be the national agenda. While some societies are thinking 100 years, they know that their oil reserves will be depleted. Definitely, they know. Now they are building and they are planning for the next 100 years. So in the next 100 years without oil, how is Saudi Arabia going to survive. And that is leadership. And that is what it is, because the king, in fact, they said that when we want to talk about love, you want to talk about real humanity. It is when the elderly people, they plant trees, knowing that the trees will not grow
for them to harvest the fruits.
Yes. That is what we are supposed to do.
But the elderly person of today want to harvest the fruits.
No, in fact, they will not even plant the tree. The few trees planted, they are rather plundering those trees. And that has been the story of this country. So we have come a long way from 1992. We put together a solid constitution. It needs review, yes. It will be done, I believe, with time. We put together institutions to run our democracy. We have a solid judicial system. Our parliament is working, even though I wish that we will have strict separation of powers, so that parliament will be strictly separated from the executive.
That mix.
No, that mix is not helping. If we have it that way, I believe then the scrutiny that we want to be brought to bear on appointments, for instance, will be effective. But in the arrangement we have, the president is supposed to exactly. The president is supposed to appoint quite a lot from parliament.
At least 50%.
Yes. Why that? So in that case, every parliamentarian has more or less a 50% chance. If you have 120 ministers, it means at least 60 will come from parliament. I stand a good chance. So why don't I follow the party whip in so that I'll be considered? And these are the things that are not helping our democracy. So I think we have done well for ourselves as a people. We will definitely improve even with what we have now. There has been improvement. We will still be building on it. There are many facts about the 1992 elections that maybe one or two that J.J. Rawlings won almost all regions. He won, apart from the Upper East, Upper West regions, Ashanti region, he won the rest. So what shows that it was rigged. So when you look at some of these facts, Dr. Hilal Liman won the two upper regions because he was an indigent, so it was expected. And MPP Ashanti region also fell to.
So Ashanti has been a stronghold of Ashanti, not today.
No, it started with NLM.
Okay.
1948, 1947, 1948, NLM. Okay. So that was where it started. In fact, it nearly became Ashanti Redentist movement, the NLM. But thankfully, it didn't get there. So it has been their stronghold from day one. And, well, let's see what happens. Whether the NDC is promising that they are going to break it, they are going to make a lot of inroads into Ashanti region. Let's see what happens.
I am sure come next week, we are going to be looking at the second term of the NDC.
Okay.
After the first, of course, the first election rigging. What changed for the second term of the Fourth Republic that Jerry John Rawlings won again? Dr. Maliha ABUBAKARI, your closing submissions.
My closing remarks. I just feel from not even 1992, but from 1957 to date, I don't think Ghana has done well, but we don't have much to show for all the natural resources that we have from 1957 to date. Because I look at our compatriots, we keep talking about Malaysia,
Singapore.
I look at Singapore, Lee Kuan Yew, and even I look at UAE. All this transformation you see in UAE is within 50 years. And what happened to us in Ghana?
We are retired, but still.
So I think our biggest headache in Ghana is leadership.
Sure.
Our biggest headache is leadership. We have the resources that we need to develop. We have the human capital with the requisite skill that we need to develop. But our problem is we have selfish leaders. We do not have selfless leaders. Our leaders are not empathetic to the citizens of Ghana. It is only in Ghana where you find the country is broke, yet individuals are filthy rich. And so, for me, I am praying and hoping for a day that Ghana would wake up to a selfless leader who would put the country first before any other thing. Our love for money. Greed is what is killing the country. Greed is what is not making us advance. And it is not only at the leadership level. Even at our level, in our offices, in our marketplaces, you see greed all around us. But I believe that the fish begins to rot from the head. And if we have the right leadership in place, then goodness will transcend to every part of our country, to every level. And so help me in prayers that we get the right leadership in place.
Amen to this.
Allahu Akbar. Thank you very, very much, Dr. MALIHA ABUBAKARI from the Political Science Department, and my good brother, Dr. EBENEZER AMANOR LARTEY. To the production team, ably assisted by
Also from politics.
Francis Tausbole, Bright Fuga, Felix Koji, languaging somewhere in Accra, also doing the searches for us and backing us. The technical team, Usman Mumunim, Abigeni, and of course, Jonathan. On the multimedia, we have Bismarck and his team. We say thank you so much for making our listeners enjoy us today. Next week, we are back and we look at the second term of Jerry John Rawlings on the Fourth Republic. Thanks for doing the listening. My name is Collins AWUKU. I love what I do, and you love listening to me. God willing, next week, we have a date.
What